Hello and welcome to Cabernet Chronicles. Mallory's behind the scenes dying right now. I am Amy Lynn.
And I'm Don.
And this is Donnie. And this is literally the fourth time we are now doing this intro because
It's been a great night.
kind of shit keeps happening. We almost killed Jet. Now we just almost killed Mallory, but it's fine. We're gonna get through this. I believe in us.
Is that a song?
No, I just made it up.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, this is a podcast where just shit apparently goes off the rails, and it's just, at least I didn't call it Cabernet Chronicles this time, so that's good because I've done that before. Cabernet. All right, so today I am going to talk about a really crazy story that links back to our last episode. So our last episode, if you didn't know, we talked a little bit about the start of the Doe Network. And the Doe Network is a online database where volunteers can go and try to link up missing persons with John Doe, Jane Doe, and Baby Doe cases. And so this is one of those cases that were helped solved by the Doe Network. All right. So you ready?
Ready.
I'm ready. In Marana, Arizona, or as the Latins call it,
Marana.
there we go, Arizona, November 25th, 1987, a decomposed body of a young woman was found.
Ooh.
Yes. So she had been shot 5 times by a .22 caliber, and she was estimated to be 17 to 21 years old with a fair complexion. They said most likely Caucasian, but she could have been Latin or Native American, but with fair complexion. So, like our Argentinian friends. She had short, curly brown hair, but her eye color could not be determined.
That is decomposed.
Yes. However, she had a very distinctive, large upper teeth, front teeth. So she had very large front teeth with a gap in between.
Okay.
And so that's actually like for these bodies that are found and everything, having tattoos, having distinctive scars,
Yeah.
actually really help identifying.
Specific characteristics that
Yes.
are out of the norm.
So having something like large upper front teeth with a gap in between can actually help identify.
Mm-hmm.
And they found that her teeth were very well cared for. And so she had obviously had dental care. So they actually took dental impressions and sent it to local dentists. Based on what she was wearing, though, which was several jackets and tons of layers, even though she's in Arizona.
Homeless?
So they think she was a runaway.
Oh, yeah.
But she was found with a purple sweater over her face, which told investigators that most likely the killer knew her. And because that's actually usually a sign of remorse from a killer, is if they cover up a victim or if they make him look like, stage them like they're sleeping or something like that.
Something
It's
more natural.
usually means that the killer knew the victim and has remorse in a way. But so even though she was compared to multiple missing women, she wasn't identified. So she was dubbed Jane Doe 19. She was buried in the Pima County Cemetery in 1989. So she's dubbed Jane Doe 19, and she remained unidentified for 27 years.
Wow.
When, in 2015, it was announced that Jane Doe 19 was Deanna Lee Criswell
Criswell.
of Spokane, Washington.
Whoa. Trippy.
Yeah. And why it's so trippy is because he grew up in parts of Arizona
And also in Spokane.
and also in Spokane.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why I picked this one, was because I was like, oh, hey.
Interesting.
She was found in parts of where you grew up in Arizona.
Yeah.
But then she was also grew up in the Spokane area where you were.
And so was there, when they finally figured out who she was, were they able to date back when she actually went missing?
Yes.
Did anybody report that?
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, so she was found in November 1987, and we're going to get to it, but she had left her family around September 1987.
Crazy.
Yes. So super crazy.
And so once they identified her, did they figure out her exact age?
Yes.
And how old was she?
So 1987, she was 16.
Wow.
Yes.
Oof.
So Diana Lee Criswell was born September 20th, 1971, and she was found in 1987.
Yeah.
So she was 16.
Wow.
Yes. So she was young, and it's very sad because, well, so what kind of infuriates me about this case is kind of with the last case where Barbara was not reported missing.
Yeah.
She was not reported missing because the police at the time went, well, she's ran away before, so they refused to do a missing persons case
Wow.
on her.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So she was born in 1971 in Spokane, Washington. She actually had an older sister, Debbie, who was 14 years older than her. And Diana's parents actually divorced when she was 3 years old. And her father, Jerry, was a trucker. And so her mother had custody of her but worked 2 jobs to support the family. And while growing up, she was very, very close to her maternal grandfather. So her mom's dad.
Yep.
Very close to him because he watched her all the time. However, then following his death is when she became the rebellious teen. But really, like, now we know, oh, she probably just needed therapy.
Right?
Like, but back in the 80s, it was
Not so prevalent.
not prevalent. She became a rebellious teen, really, because the person that was her caregiver and watched her all the time, her grandfather, passed away.
Yep.
And that's really traumatic. So after he died, she became the rebellious teen, and she became involved with a older group of people. However, Diana later moved to Seattle to live with her dad and that's when her behavior improved.
Interesting, but he was a trucker.
Yeah. But I think she just, like, sometimes when you have a trauma in one place, moving can make it easier to get over that trauma, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So she lived with her father, and her behavior did improve. But when she reached age 15, she began to act out again. And so then she returned to Spokane to live with her mother.
Oh, there's the mistake. No, you Spokane is a one-way door. You go out. You don't go back. That's just my opinion and my experience, but I digress.
I mean, you grew up there, so I mean, kind of that's how I feel about Tacoma. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
Because you were like, what about living in Tacoma? And I went, ugh.
Yeah. And I've never lived there. But, trust the source.
I mean, I think it's just, well, God, I can't believe I'm saying this now. I've literally have lived half my life in Seattle and half my life in Tacoma, other than the times that I went abroad and stuff like that. But
Wait,
It's weird to say.
So you lived like 14 and a half years in Tacoma and 14 and a half years in
babe.
Seattle?
No, that's not at all what I did. I appreciate you. Oh. Yeah, I'm definitely not 28, but yes.
I said 14 and a half. That would be 29.
Okay, sorry, 29. All right, yeah. That's how long I stayed in Tacoma, stayed in Seattle. You're right. So yes, Deanna did go move back to Spokane with her mother, and 6 months before her death, Deanna actually did run away from home, and she lived on the streets, although she did occasionally telephone her parents and her father especially, because she became estranged from her mother. And in that time, she started a relationship with a 36-year-old man named William Bill Ross Knight. Yeah. So she is 15, not quite 16 yet, almost 16, in a relationship with a 36-year-old man. I am not 36 years old yet. Almost.
I know.
But not
You're
quite.
29. We established that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm 29.
Low.
Yeah. Could not imagine. I cannot imagine doing that. But anyways, predators. That's what they do.
Right.
And so he relocated to Tucson, Arizona. Then he, yes.
Here we go.
Yes. Then he sent Deanna a bus ticket in September of 1987 to join. So Deanna went. She did not tell her parents that she was going. However,
not.
when she reached Tucson, she did call her older sister Debbie. Deanna's father was not really immediately worried or concerned because he felt like she could take care of herself.
Shit, was he even contactable? If he's a freaking truck driver, he's probably out on the road.
He probably was on the road and everything, and so yeah,
it's one thing to take care of yourself at home, back
yes,
in a place where you think what's going on, but it's a whole nother thing if she leaves the state and goes down to
Arizona,
the Wild West, for lack of a better word.
Yes.
So she gets down to Arizona.
So she gets down to Arizona, and her body is found 2 months later, but it's decomposed. So that means that she died within a month of her getting to Tucson.
Yep. Well, how long's decomp take? I mean, a couple days.
It depends on the decomposition, but from how decomposed she was dead for, they estimate, at least 3 weeks.
Wow. Ooh, that is a lot of decomp.
Yeah. They couldn't even put out a know her eye color because her eyes
are
were gone.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. So that's how decomposed she was.
I mean, if she was in Tucson, where the hell is Marana? Marana.
It's right by Tucson.
So it's out in some sort of outskirt.
It's right by there, right by Phoenix, Tucson, by Phoenix.
Yeah, so it's
area.
like Phoenix and then Tucson, so it must be something in between.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of little dotted cities.
There's a bunch of,
yeah.
So it's between Phoenix and Tucson. Yes. So again, father thought she could take care of herself, everything like that. But by Christmas, no one had heard a word, including him, and he attempted to file a missing person report, but local officials declined to cooperate because of her history of running away. But you have to remember that she was running away from her mother's house is where she was running away from.
Wait, but so her dad tried to file a missing persons?
Yes.
Oh.
Her dad tried to file missing persons. They refused to even file one because they're like, oh, she just ran away. And this is what's so fucked up is that back then, especially, if you ran away once at all, they'd be like, oh, well, she ran away, so Who cares? And it's like, no. Those are the most vulnerable people. Like some of the most vulnerable people are the runaways.
Yep.
So you should care that there are runaways. You should
more effort into it.
Absolutely put more effort into it because they are more likely to be murdered, to be sex trafficked, to be all these horrible things.
To fall into the gap.
Like, or just like fall into drugs and everything. And no, but this was the mentality back then. Was in the 80s, it was, oh, they ran away. We're just not even going to try or look for them. Meh. It was very awful and horrible. So she officially was never reported missing, which again made it then hard to then identify her.
Marry up the information.
But in 2014, her aunt and uncle decided to start looking for her anew. And they found out that Deanna's sister had heard from her from Tucson in 1987. So they put their efforts into Arizona. And they went on to the Doe Network. And they found a profile of Jane Doe 19, which had a bunch of stuff with it. It had facial reconstruction done by the FBI in 2010, in which strongly resembled their niece and her sister.
I would think the volume of jackets and clothing she was in would be identifiable, probably by like the sister or by the father.
So again, like part of the problem too with some of these cases is if she's from Washington. So even if they did a missing persons report, it would have been in Washington.
Oh, interesting.
Not in Arizona.
Well,
even though they told them that she went to Arizona, they're pretty sure she went to Arizona.
Yeah. But I would think from like the Doe side of things, if they start piecing things together and contact the parents and start to show pictures or, show the evidence around, that they go, oh, I recognize that jacket, or I recognize this particular layer.
So that wasn't out there quite. Like, so that, like, some of her stuff was out there, but they don't always show like the pictures like of detail. The things, because
if it's
many people could have had that jacket if it was at Kmart or wherever.
Well, and if you said jackets, so she was wearing layers.
She had a lot of layers.
The corresponding layers would be highly improbable, right?
Yeah.
But anywho, sorry.
No, but that's a great point though. Yeah. Like. That's one way. That is one way that people can identify like bodies, but also you have to remember that it was years. So 1987 to
Are you really gonna remember what the jacket was that somebody had back?
Exactly. Yeah. And so they also exhumed her body and found different DNA. So it took her DNA, but also found DNA on her.
Run that through a database.
They did.
And?
They found someone on it. Yes. However, they found someone on it, but then they still didn't identify the body yet. So they didn't know who it was.
Give it time. They'll repeat.
So, but put a pin in that because we're going to come back to that. We're going to circle back.
Yeah.
So her aunt and uncle contacted law enforcement. And they did DNA tests. And again, she had a very distinctive gap in her two front teeth. And so they had that as well. And they did the DNA test and they found it matched. So after 27 years, Jane Doe 19 was finally identified as Deanna Criswell. So now, what did we learn from the last episode? How are most women murdered? By their partners.
Yep.
Well,
did like she mention the partner's name or the guy that she was dating that was older to somebody in the family?
They didn't have to because they strongly believe that William Ross Knight, the 36-year-old that she was dating, was the killer because that DNA that they found on the body, they ran through CODIS and it popped up as him because he was already in jail. And actually, unfortunately, he had already died in jail of liver complications after being in prison for multiple robberies, but one of them was an armed robbery that he did with a .22 caliber gun, which is what she was married up with and killed with. So they had actually matched the DNA with him before they knew who she was, but he was already dead. And so they were like,
trying to figure out who
we're never going to be able to find out who she is because they were trying, he was dead, so he couldn't tell them who
can't give any detail.
His victim was.
Yep.
However, then because of the Doe network, the family was able to find her and they were able to give the DNA to show that they were a match. So they were able to identify Deanna Criswell as his victim, and they knew that he killed her, but he can't, of course they can't charge him because he's already dead, unfortunately.
Yep.
And so that's the sucky part about it, is that he was never charged with her murder because he died already. However, he did spend the entire 26 years that she went unidentified in prison.
Oh, that's good.
Because he actually was arrested 8 days before her body was discovered.
Wow.
Yeah. Because he had done an armed robbery with a .22, and he had done multiple armed robberies around the area. And so he got basically almost life in prison.
Nice.
By doing that. So that's like a consolation prize where he got that.
Yeah.
But again, Deanna was absolutely failed by the system because they refused to make a missing persons report out of her, number one, because she had ran away before.
Nobody wants to put any time or energy into it.
So they didn't put any time or energy into it. But also because of the technology and everything at the time, because her body was found in Arizona, they couldn't, they didn't have a national network.
Yeah, there's no correlation.
So at the time, the missing and exploited children, and that was not a thing yet. The national database of CODIS was not a thing yet. DNA was not quite a thing yet. But it's crazy that they knew who killed Deanna before she was actually identified because of the DNA that they found on her.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's technology clearly has come a long way.
It really has come a long way.
Getting out of pen and paper and into digital records and centralization is a huge component of that.
Is a huge component, and it's also, it's helping solve these cases, number one, but it's also helping families get the closure that they need and that they deserve. And then, not in this case completely getting justice for the victim, but he was in prison for that 26 years.
I guess the closure comes in lieu of justice.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
At the very least. But
at the very least. Exactly. And so that is the story of Deanna Criswell, her life, and her unfortunate 26 years of being Jane Doe 19, but also of the power of the Doe network and how a family was finally able to get closure from it.
Yeah, so if you can donate to the Doe network, we would advocate for that.
Yes, so thank you so much for joining us for this little adventure of learning about Deanna's life and about her unfortunate time of being unidentified, but about the Doe network and how you or I or any of us can maybe help find closure for these families. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Like and subscribe.
Bye.
Bye.